Hello, it's great to have you for another episode of the Next Level Show. I'm Cledra Gross, your host, and today I want to talk about don't fear the future. This weekend, my husband and I went to West Virginia to see some friends who are also in ministry, and we had an amazing time. It was a 5 hour trip, and we just talked the entire time. 10 hours of talking, and I couldn't be happier because of it. Just the car drive alone was amazing. And I couldn't help but rewind back to when I thought that it wouldn't be possible for me to have this with someone. And that's where I came up with the topic of don't fear the future. Because I remember when I was married the first time, sometimes my husband and I get in these conversations about, the lessons from divorce. And my first marriage, there were like 500 people at my wedding, and I'm an only child. So my parents would always do it big for me. It was a beautiful wedding. I won't take that back. It was a beautiful wedding. But I remembered the fear I had when I realized that this marriage was not one that I wanted to sustain. I feared my future. I feared that I would ever, you know, find love again. At that point, I was going to be in my 40s at that point, and, all the statistics of Black women and getting married and how hard it was. And I didn't have a shortage of people reminding me that, you better work it out because it's hard out here. There was just a lot of fear. And so I'm sharing this with you to say that my brain was lying to me. Every time it would offer that, stay where you are. This is too risky. You're not going to have what it takes. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. You need to just turn your head the other way and just forgive the things that I felt were just not something I should forgive. Well, let me change that. Not that they weren't forgivable. It's just I didn't want to tolerate it. And so I want to explain the science of fear. Here's why this happens. I want to make it something that's relevant for you. If you are wanting to do something and your brain has this narrative of how it's too dangerous, there's too much at risk, or you better play it safe. I remember that narrative was the same when I wanted to go from engineering into sales. And then when I wanted to go from pharmaceutical sales into life coaching, it was the same narrative. Like, what are you doing? It's too risky. You need to play it safe. And so here's why this happens. Our brain is wired for survival, not expansion. So, the amygdala, I want you to see that as our brain's threat detector. It can't tell the difference between facing something like a wild animal and filing divorce. It doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know the difference. So, it doesn't know the difference between running out of food and leaving a job you've outgrown. So, to the amygdala, change equals danger. Even chosen change that you believe would move your life directionally in a better direction. That's why your body floods with anxiety. It's why you freeze. It's why you keep replaying the same stories in your mind. But you're not just your amygdala. You also have the prefrontal cortex. I like to call this the CEO of the brain. It's responsible for focus, planning, and intentional decisions. When you activate the prefrontal cortex, you can override the narrative that the amygdala is dictating to you and begin to design your future instead of fearing your future and reacting to it. So, I want to give you four universal fears that I've discovered just in my years of coaching and just my personal journey. As I've gotten older, and even as my clients, most of them are above 40, it's will my body function the way I want it to as I get older? That's a fear, right? When the truth is, you can choose to care for your health. And then by caring for your health, you expand your capacity to live, lead, and love fully. Now, listen, I know there are no guarantees for any of us, but we do have a choice with what we put in our mouth. We have a choice with what we put in our mind. We have a choice of whether we will invest in the habits in developing the habits that we need right now, the habits that we we sow now will be the harvest that we reap later in life if we're blessed to have later in life. Another fear that I hear a lot from women is, will I run out of money? The truth is, wealth grows with aligned actions, not just the size of your paycheck. And security isn't the same as freedom. There's a point where it's not about making money, but it's learning the skills to help to have money grow. It's having money grow for you as opposed to just making money. Another fear is, will I still matter after my career? What will I do? Will I still be relevant? The truth is, you get to reinvent your purpose and impact at any point. Relevance isn't tied to a role. It's tied to your intentional design. I'll hear this with women who they have adult children and they're going to college or they're getting married and they're like, where do I fit now? And this, where you fit is at accepting an invitation to reinvent yourself, to reinvent the fact that, life is different. And so, what different choices will you make? The fourth universal fear I hear a lot is the fear of making the wrong choice. Just ruminating about a decision. Should I do this? Should I do that? And the truth is, the real risk isn't choosing wrong. The real risk is staying stuck and circling in regret. The older we get, I like to look at it as it's less about the right decision and more about deciding to make my decision right. There isn't some curriculum. Most of us live 18, 20, some of us 25, 28 years, depending on how much formal education you have, where there's a curriculum. There are right answers and wrong answers. But we all get to a season where it's about making a decision that's right for you and then deciding that the decision is right based on how it feels from the inside out, not based on how many people agree with you, the opinions of other people. So let's look at some practical application of this you may be saying, but Cledra, you don't understand. I have some legitimate fears about the future. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. So this is where you start. I want you to name the story. Name the narrative your brain is feeding you. What fear is your brain feeding you? Get it out. The second step is to separate facts from fear. Ask yourself, is this the truth or just my amygdala sounding the alarm? So, for example, when I was debating about my divorce, when I finally made the decision to get the divorce, my brain would feed me, you're going to be all alone. You're going to be all alone. And so the fact was, the facts were that I wasn't alone. I wasn't. It was truly my amygdala sounding the alarm because at this point in my life, I was in my 30s and everyone was getting married. Everyone was having babies in my circle. And so I was kind of like the black sheep. I was the one going through a divorce and learning how to be on a dating app. And so I was taking a different path from the friends that I had. So what that did, though, is it allowed me to reinvent myself and open myself up to new friends who were in the same season of life as I was. Okay, the third thing is to engage the CEO of your brain. So remember, that's the prefrontal cortex. And the way you engage the prefrontal, number one, is to plan in advance. So we're used to being taught to plan activities in advance. I want you to know that you can also plan what you're going to think in advance. So, when I did this work years ago, and I knew that my amygdala was going to continue to sound the alarm that, Cleaser, you're going to be alone. You're not going to be able to take care of yourself. And so the thoughts that I would have is, I am very friendly. I tend to make friends easily. I mean, and that was the truth, and so I would think that I'm open to new friends. I know that God is going to send me new friends. And more than sending me, I went to meetups, I joined a running club, I joined a book club. I put myself in position to create what I wanted, which was a social network. Independent of whether I ever got married again, I was like, I can control cultivating and curating a wonderful group of friends. And I did that. So that's number one in terms of how you engage the CEO of your brain. Number two is journaling, gentle movement, prayer. And I have to put a plug in for coaching because coaching is all about being able to reveal the parts of your thought process and your thought patterns that can tend to be a blind spot for you and can tend to be a blind spot for people who are close to you, like your friends. Okay. The fourth thing is to design with intention. Choose the beliefs that will expand your life instead of shrink it. You know, we're always making up stories. Our amygdala is always making up stories that tend to be catastrophic. And I always say to my clients, if you're going to make up a story, if you're going to believe a made up story, then make it a story where you are the star, where you have a great outcome. So I started telling myself that it's possible I will find love again. It's possible that I will meet someone who's compatible with me. It's possible that I'll meet someone who gets that I'm a nerd and I love to read a lot of books and I like to talk about deep things. And it happened. So that's the real work. It's uncovering the lies that our brain tells us when we want to make change and then rewriting your story with intention. So it's going from our brain has something called the default network. So it's moving from the default network where a lot of it's not the truth to designing your network. And that's the work that I absolutely love to do in my private practice. And if you're listening to this in September of 2025, and I want to invite you to my Reimagine Your Next Level. And it's all about a 3-day reset where I'm going to walk you through how to do this in the areas of your money, your health, and your future design. Because no one talks to us about this stuff. Usually we are in a posture of reacting to life. And I didn't even realize this until I went through my divorce. And as I got help from different coaches and therapists, I'm like, people need to talk about this way before now. And so I'm one of the people. I'm doing that now. So this reset isn't about just weight loss or chasing money or putting together a business vision board that people do, in January. It's about uncovering the lies your brain is telling you. It's going into the science of fear, and it's really breaking it down and unraveling these stories that we tell ourselves so that you can really in a courageous way, you don't have to fear your future. So there are two ways that you can take the next step. If it's not September 2025, then you can schedule a one-on-one consult with me by going to my website, cledra.com. That's just Cledra.com. If it is September 2025 and it's not after the 24th, then you don't want to miss this Reimagine Your Next Level. It's a 3-day reset. It's going to be each night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if those times don't work for you, register anyway, and you will be able to get the replays. I promise you, this is going to support your life. If you are having those moments where you are fearing what may happen, then you don't want to miss this. But in the meantime, I've given you 4 steps, and I want you to take those 4 steps. Let me just recap those 4 steps again to apply this. Name the story. What fear is your brain feeding you? Separate fact from fear. Ask yourself, is this the truth or just my amygdala sounding the alarm? Number 3, engage the CEO of your brain. And you do that in 2 ways, planning your thoughts in advance. The second way, journaling, movement, and prayer. And of course, coaching. And the 4th is design with intention. Choose beliefs. That means choose thoughts that expand your life instead of shrink it. Okay, that's what I have for you this week. I am so happy to share this work with you because, listen, this work changed my life years ago, and that's why I'm passionate about it doing the same for you. Okay, God bless, and I'll see you in the next episode.